Chapter 181, If I Don't Do It, Who Will? All of Fenglin's vitality was unleashed, forming a material pressure that seemed as if Mount Tai was pressing down on them and onto the space, making it hard for them to breathe. Overwhelming spirit force spread out, causing even the air to distort, wind to blow, and clouds to seethe. The place Fenglin stood became the center of a tornado, sending out endless pressure toward all directions continuously and causing the others to be unable to straighten their bodies. How massive was his vitality? Everyone was taken by astonishment, struck by the feeling of an impending calamity. Jess Clot and Zhao Kai stood amongst the people and watched the scene in shock. Only now did they understand how great the differences between themselves and Fenglin were. Their provocation earlier was simply courting death. Thankfully, Fenglin didn't lower himself down to their levels. Otherwise, the consequences would be too dreadful to think of. Fenglin no longer suppressed his vitality, and all the students in the gifted class, Duan Yunlu included, felt as if a great invisible mountain was pressing down on them, forcing their backs to bend and their bodies to be unable to straighten. The hostility in everyone's heart dissipated completely. No one dared to harbor any improper thoughts. If a rat had gotten strong, they might dare to challenge a wild cat. However, who would dare to challenge a ferocious tiger? The difference in their strength was huge, and this made them come to terms with reality. You're already an interstellar cultivator? How high is your vitality? The principal asked in surprise. Even though he was already an elite cultivator, he still felt a sense of danger coming from Fenglin. Not only was Fenglin an interstellar cultivator, but he was also one of the top-notch ones, being only one step away from becoming an elite cultivator. This was why Fenglin could give him such a great sense of pressure. The principal came to acknowledge how amazing Fenglin was. 92.8. Fenglin replied outright. He had brought his cultivation to a level that far surpassed that of his peers. There wasn't a need for him to hide anything anymore. If he didn't display his true capabilities, the principal might harbor doubts instead. Fenglin was bent on getting the slot for applying to the Cosmos University. He wasn't going to let anyone stand in his way. This affected his future cultivating path and his destiny. There was no way that Fenglin was going to give in. People who wished to stand in his way were all his enemies, and he won't hold back against them. Before Fenglin's vitality had reached 2 points, he had already dared to go up against his clan. It had all been for the sake of cultivation. Even after he was confined, his determination hadn't wavered. Thereafter, he cut off all means of retreat, left Earth for Mars. After going through great bloodshed, he eventually managed to turn the tables around and changed his destiny. During the entire journey, Fenglin overcame all obstacles with a disposition of stepping up in the face of responsibility. He had a mindset that if he didn't do it, then nobody would. Principal, what do you think of my current strength? Will I be able to make it to a Cosmos University? Fenglin didn't try to hide anything. He displayed his determination to get a chance. The principal fell silent. Fenglin had proven that he was capable of applying for a Cosmos University. However, this quota was worth 10 million star coins, and he couldn't bear to part with it. Fenglin slowly spoke up with an interrogating tone, Principal, do you only want a sum of star coins? Or do you want a talented student who made it to a Cosmos University? You'll have to decide between the two options. Fenglin's words caused the principal to waver, and the latter spoke in a deep voice, Are you really confident that you'll be able to make it into a Cosmos University? If I'm not confident, then why would I apply for it? Fenglin couldn't care to answer a question like this and wore a faint smile. Principal, I'll be honest. I come from the Feng clan and I've emerged as the first place in the recent clan's ranking competition. If I'm unable to make it into a Cosmos University, who on this earth will be able to? When it was time to keep a high profile, he mustn't hold back. Although he sounded very haughty, he wasn't exaggerating at all. The fact that he had emerged as the first place in the Feng clan's ranking competition was very convincing. The principal was also taken by surprise. He knew from a long time ago that Feng Lin came from the well-known Feng clan on Earth. However, Feng Lin was merely a low-grade clansman. He hadn't expected that Feng Lin would be able to be ranked at the top of his clan's ranking competition. This was an amazing feat. The Feng clan was a magnate clan on Earth, producing many talents. Being able to rank first amongst them would mean that Feng Lin was one of the most top-notch geniuses on Earth. To think that such a demonic character would appear in Earth High School? The principal found this hard to believe. Feng Lin smiled and said something that became the last straw that tilted the scale. I only want the quota for an application. I don't need any other cultivating resources. Are you sure that you won't need any cultivating resources? The principal ascertained once again, finding it hard to believe. Without any cultivating resources, how could one get stronger and get into a Cosmos University? This didn't make sense. Feng Lin nodded. That's right. I want to get into a Cosmos University, so I'll need to break through to become an interstellar cultivator as soon as possible. The resources provided by the school are no longer of any use to me. I'll find my own means to settle this. Principal, you can rest assured. Since I've said this, then I'll definitely not regret it. The principal naturally wouldn't go back on his words. Instead, he was speechless. Was Feng Lin actually showing consideration toward the school, or was he looking down on the school? Hey, he must be doing this intentionally. Could the school not afford to nurture him just because he had become an elite cultivator? The principal felt a little uncomfortable, but he had to admit that the school really couldn't afford to nurture him. Earth High School had been in decline for a very long time. It was already extremely difficult for there to be an interstellar cultivator amongst each generations of high school graduates, let alone an elite cultivator. They had never produced an elite cultivator before. The principal realized that Feng Lin's abrupt rise had no relations to Earth High School at all. To be honest, the school was the one at an advantage, picking up an unparalleled genius without having contributed anything. If he didn't agree with Feng Lin's only condition, Feng Lin would definitely transfer to another school immediately. Any school would welcome such a powerful genius. Therefore, in order to keep this genius, Earth High School must pay a sufficient price. As a principal, how could he possibly be an idiot? Feng Lin's confidence was that if he couldn't do it, then no one could make the principal increasingly optimistic toward his achievements. All right. I'll give this quota to you. The principal decided with great resolve. Thank you, principal. Feng Lin nodded. He teased when he saw the principal's painful expression. Don't worry, if I get into a Cosmos University, Earth High School will also get a lot of benefits as my alma mater. The principal also broke into a smile after hearing Feng Lin's words. Both of them were very smart people. If Earth High School produced a genius that got into a Cosmos University, their reputation would rise tremendously and ring out across the Earth. The quality of their teachers and resources would also rise tremendously. There were endless benefits. Since the decision was made, the school would have to show Feng Lin even more support. The principal reminded, the school will only give you an application chance. Moreover, Cosmos universities have a very high status and the right to enroll their students from the whole interstellar space. Therefore, other than the ordinary Cosmos University's test, there'll also be additional tests. Only after you've passed through the whole examinations at the Cultivators Management Association will you be able to obtain the actual rights to apply for Cosmos Universities. Today is the day all the high schools on Earth sum up the students' applications. Tomorrow, there'll be a registration test for Interstellar Empire Universities and Cosmos Universities at the Earth's Cultivation Association. I'll go with you then. All right. The application chance for Cosmos Universities was happily decided between the young and old crafty foxes, Feng Lin and the principal. Chapter 182, Assemblage of Outstanding Talents. The space shuttle flew past rapidly in the sky, crossing a vast ocean and arriving in the center of the Pacific Ocean. A huge metal island stood amidst the water, as if it was one entity with the ocean itself. The island was actually a building, with all sorts of space shuttles parked on it. Distinguished guests, welcome to the Earth's Cultivation Association. Today is the day for the Interstellar Empire Universities and Cosmos Universities tests. Please queue up and enter in order. An electronic voice rang out from the huge metal island. A space shuttle slowly descended. The principal and the valiant head teacher got off the shuttle. They led Feng Lin and other members of the gifted class through the way. You bring the others to the Interstellar Empire University's exam location. I'll head to the other exam location for the Cosmos Universities with Feng Lin, said the principal to the valiant head teacher. Then, under the other students' envious gazes, Feng Lin and the principal left the group by themselves and headed for the center of the Earth's Cultivation Association. They walked very quickly and saw a hall in the distance. The door opened silently by itself. Feng Lin and the principal entered and instantly saw many dagger-like gazes thrown toward them. The gazes were filled with hostility, judgment, and contempt. The place had been filled with people and was now very lively. There were people dressed in all sorts of tight-fitting uniforms, like they were the examination candidates that had come from all across the earth. Feng Lin realized that each and everyone present was at least an interstellar cultivator with powerful vitality. There were even a few streams of auras mixed amongst them which gave him a strong sense of threat. However, those people had intentionally concealed their strength. Feng Lin wondered how strong they actually were. He secretly nodded. This was really an assemblage of outstanding talents. As mankind's planet of origin, as expected, Earth still had its own foundations. Elites from all corners of the Earth had gathered here to apply for the Cosmos Universities. The competition would be very intense. Feng Lin realized that although his vitality was very strong, it was still too soon for him to call himself the number one person amongst the younger generation on Earth. Interesting. The more challenging it was, the more interesting it would be for Feng Lin. If he continued to dominate over his opponents, it would be really boring. The path of cultivation broke the shackles of the human's body and was one that defied the heavens. If one didn't advance valiantly, how could they continue to progress forward? The greater the challenge, the more excited Feng Lin felt. Powerful opponents would be able to stimulate him to grow more rapidly. Seeing that Feng Lin didn't shy away at all, the principal nodded and his confidence in Feng Lin grew. He started to give Feng Lin some pointers. Do you see that group of white-skinned youths over there? Feng Lin turned and saw a group of white-skinned students with blonde hair and blue eyes. There were males and females amongst them, and they stood together, wearing cold expressions. There was a very conspicuous white-colored cross symbol on their uniforms. They are students from Holy Cross High School. This high school is ranked amongst the top 3 on Earth and only takes in white-skinned students. The school inherited the legacy of the high-class low-tier genetic martial art, the Holy Cross Punch. When it is performed, every move will be imbued with purifying powers. Its prowess is tremendous and isn't to be underestimated, introduced the principal. He had seen a lot in life and was very knowledgeable. He then continued to introduce the background of all the other candidates present. These are students from the South Pole. Although their school's ranking isn't high and is only ranked around 50, the legacy they inherited, the frost ice invulnerable body, allows them to use the power of ice and snow, strengthens their bodies, and is quite powerful. Moreover, their moves are imbued with frost energy and can catch the opponents off guard. These thin students are candidates from the Vedas High School. They excel in ancient India's yoga art. They might seem skinny and weak, but even the weakest of them has the strength to toss an elephant. If you were to encounter them, you'll have to be careful. These black-skinned candidates are from Fachio High School. They excel in genetic martial arts that have been modified from black magic. Their abilities are extremely strange and vicious, usually with the effect of curses. They are really terrifying. Feng Lin listened seriously and didn't underestimate others just because his vitality was stronger than his peers. Even a lion would use its full power when fighting against a rabbit. Moreover, these were the most outstanding examination candidates from various high schools on Earth. Otherwise, they wouldn't have dared to apply for Cosmos universities. When the principal was giving introductions to Feng Lin, a disharmonious voice rang out. Yoshi, 1. Huang-san, to think that your Earth High School didn't sell the quota this time around and dare to come to apply for Cosmos universities, this is the first. What a rare sight. The voice sounded stiff, as if not used to speaking Mandarin. Pata-pata. A series of footsteps got closer, surrounding Feng Lin and the principal. Feng Lin, who was listening seriously but was interrupted by someone for no reason at all, frowned and felt displeased. A group of Japanese wearing kimono and wooden clogs surrounded them with seemingly ill intent. These are the candidates from the Japan region's Yamato High School. Their school is ranked 10th on Earth, and they are skilled in using ninjutsu-typed genetic martial arts. Their abilities are strange and hard to read, very difficult to deal with. The principal's face was filled with wariness and vigilance as he reminded Feng Lin. Feng Lin neither raised his eyelids nor make a sound. He had no intention of getting involved in the trouble. As long as these matters that were like irritating flies didn't get in his way, he couldn't be bothered to look in that direction. However, if things really got in his way, he wouldn't hesitate to let these people feel regret either. When Earth High School's principal Huang was called, his countenance was extremely grim. As a principal, if he were to bear with this, how would the others think of him? Thus, Principal Huang retorted, Miyata Ryasaku. If your Yamato High School is allowed to apply for Cosmos universities, so is my Earth High School. So shut it. Feng Lin secretly gave the principal a thumbs up. Good job. The Japanese middle-aged man in the lead was furious when he heard that. Baka, too. Our Yamato High School is a reputable high school that's ranked amongst the top 10. How is it something that the inferior Earth High School can compare with? If you know what's good for you, then sell the quota to us. I can still give you 1 million star coins for that, save that you waste this precious quota. This Japanese asshole kept releasing a whole load of crap. Feng Lin looked at him coldly, his gaze turning increasingly cold and becoming sharp as blades. This person kept on saying that he wanted to snatch his quota. Furthermore, he only offered to pay 10% of the price as if he was doing it out of charity. Was he trying to dismiss beggars? Seeing that the Earth High School was mocked, Principal Huang's countenance turned extremely grim. He snorted coldly, "We won't be bothering you for that. I've already promised my student, so I won't be going back on my words. This is our school's ingenious candidate, Feng Lin. He's already an official interstellar cultivator and might not be any weaker than the candidates from your Yamato High School." Principal Huang stood by Feng Lin and was clever to not reveal Feng Lin's vitality, only sharing his cultivation realm. The fats on the old Japanese man's face twitched and he broke into a malicious grin. So desu ka. Although they are all interstellar cultivators, they are still differentiated by the difference in their vitality. If that's the case, let me help Huang-san to test out this Feng Lin, so that you won't have to waste this quota. The Japanese candidates behind him raised their heads and laughed out loudly, showing off their arrogance very clearly. Hattori Juzo. The old Japanese man let out a low bellow. Yes. A short young man with black tight-fitted clothes walked out. He looked at Feng Lin with a vicious gaze that was like that of a venomous snake. His pitch-black eyes emitted an eerie glow. At the next moment, he made a move, rapidly forming seals with both hands. His eyes kept spinning like darkness vortexes that would engulf others' souls. Ninjutsu secret art, heart, headslayer. Invisible chilling waves extended out and Feng Lin's vision turned blurry. There was no more light in the surroundings. It was as if a layer of black canopy had covered the entire world, making everything seem pitch black. He felt a series of chill ran down his spine and a sharp feeling piercing his skin. It was as if a guillotine was about to plunge down, chopping off his head. Endless feelings of horror toward death rose in his heart. Feng Lin stood on the spot, not budging, as if he wasn't capable of retaliating at all. The Japanese shorty laughed out loud, looking at Feng Lin with a gaze as if he was a pitiful bug that would lose its life at any moment. After being hit with the ninjutsu art, heart, headslayer, even if the person didn't die, they would lose half of their life. This guy is crippled. Ha ha ha. Mental illusion art. Principal Wang was taken by surprise and felt that things were bad. Mental damage was the most terrifying. Even if one was saved, their mind would be severely damaged and not be able to unleash even 10% of their powers. He hadn't expected that this Japanese shorty would be so daring as to use such underhanded means. They were going to cripple Feng Lin, who was his Earth High School's genius. The principal's gaze appeared anxious. The conflict attracted several ridiculing gazes from other schools' examination candidates. They didn't care even if the matter were to blow up. Boring tricks. However, Feng Lin was very calm. He looked at the surroundings, not anxious at all. He knew that he had just been temporarily bewitched by mental illusion art. To use mental illusion art on him when he had already awakened the spirit gene was like trying to show off in front of an expert. Spirit gene was the evolved form of mental gene. In terms of mental powers, spirit gene was mental gene's ancestor. The corners of Feng Lin's lips curled up into a hint of a smile. He had no mood to waste time with these guys. Since they were out to deal harm to him, then they'd better not blame him for not holding back. Boom. Feng Lin's forehead gleamed and his mental power gushed out like flooding water. It instantly pressed down the opposing mental power and searched for gaps in the opponent's consciousness, gushing crazily in. Ah! An agonizing cry rang out, giving everyone a shock. Light immediately returned to Feng Lin's vision, and he saw the arrogant Hattori Juzo convulsing on the ground like a pig waiting to be slaughtered. His hands were grabbing his head, and blood flowed out from his 7 apertures as he howled agonizingly. The great pain being reflected in the voice made one be on tenterhooks. This person was crazy. Feng Lin didn't spare him another glance. This person had used mental illusion art, releasing all of his mental forces and leaving his consciousness without any form of defense. Thus, when a much stronger spirit force gushed in and engulfed his consciousness, it was expected that his brain would burst. Hattori-san. What's the matter? The old Japanese guy became anxious and crowded around the shorty. Hattori Juzo's eyes had turned white, and drool was coming out from the corner of his lips. He had become an imbecile. Mental backlash. Those people who were watching from the side were all top-notch experts from various schools. Also, they had met quite a number of experts. Very soon, they recognized Feng Lin's means and their gazes turned extremely wary. Mental illusion arts were formless and the hardest to fend off. They would need to be careful if they ended up being opponents in the future. Seeing that their comrade had been crippled, the Japanese were enraged. They charged over ferociously, bellowing out as if they were a pack of wolves or wild hounds. Baka! How dare you cripple Hattori? Pay with your life. Kill this guy. Anyone who offends us Japanese won't end up in a good plight. These Japanese drew out their katanas. Sharp blade light gleamed and bloodthirsty aura emitted out of them. Fenglin stood on the spot, not moving at all. The power in his body gathered rapidly, as if it was a brewing volcano that was going to erupt at the next moment, capable of destroying everything. Silence. A deep bellow rang out, and a massive vitality wave gushed out like the sea from afar, suppressing all the rising violence at the scene with indomitable force. Pata. A pair of leather boots walked up to the center of the commotions, and a burly-looking general appeared, leading a group of capable-looking soldiers. His eagle-like eyes scanned the scene. No one could look straight in his eyes. Everyone tensed up, feeling as if they had become the small, weak animals that were stared down by a majestic eagle in the sky. They were filled with anxiety and uneasiness. Chapter 183, Who agrees? Who objects? What on earth happened here? The general led a group of fierce and capable-looking militants, and the surroundings immediately turned dead silent. There was only Hattori Juzo, whose mind had exploded, lying on the ground while grabbing onto his head and crying out agonizingly. His gaze was like lightning. No one could look at him straight in the eyes. Massive vitality waves were like vast ocean suppressing the uprising violence. It died down completely, and everyone present was as quiet as cicadas were in winter, not even daring to breathe too loud. Could this person be the legendary Grand Cultivator? Fenglin's eyes contracted intensely. It felt as if his mind and spirit had been gripped by a pair of invisible hands, and no ripples could rise. Just an interstellar cultivator wouldn't be able to bring him such great pressure. Only the legendary elite cultivator or the grand cultivator above it, being 2 major realms higher, would be able to bring such a great frightening force. There was no such amazing character on Earth. Neither was there one in the solar system. The limit of cultivation within the solar system was at the elite cultivator's level. It was widely known that there weren't sufficient cultivating resources to support people to reach the Grand Cultivator realm. Other than the fact that this general was likely a Grand Cultivator, Fenglin noticed that these militants were all at least of the level of interstellar cultivators. It was an army comprising purely of interstellar cultivators. This was something that was beyond imagination in the solar system. Only the big countries in the interstellar space would have such a capable troop. Could it be that these people came from interstellar space? This was highly possible. Fenglin was in deep thought. The Earth's Cultivation Association was a great organization whose influence had spread across the entire interstellar space and of all humanity. Even this small part of Earth would have some kind of connection with the interstellar headquarters. The tests for the Cosmos universities were very strict. It seemed that the Earth's Cultivation Association had also spent quite a large amount of energy to host it. Is there no one who is going to speak up? The general saw that no one dared to make a sound. His leather boots created plodding sounds that drummed on every heart in the area. He walked straight toward Fenglin and the Japanese students. Since no one's talking, then you guys can be the ones to speak up. Why did you create trouble at the examination ground? Principal Miyata Ryosaku from Yamato High School, as an elite cultivator, instantly got out from the general's vitality pressure and went to make a complaint first. General, it was this candidate from the Earth High School who has no regard for the examination hall's regulations and made a move first. He crippled the genius candidate, Hattori Juzo, from our Yamato High School. You must stand up for us. This candidate has no regard for the rules and regulations and should be severely dealt with. He must be crippled of his cultivation and also chased out. He accused Feng Lin hysterically, as if Feng Lin was an unpardonably wicked person. All the punishments he mentioned were all extremely vicious as well, wanting to cripple Feng Lin and having him driven out of the examination scene. Feng Lin's gaze turned completely cold as he felt that things were extremely bad. This Japanese was really brutal. If he was allowed to continue twisting the truth, things would go really bad for him. Is that the case? However, this general knew that the Japanese tended to be despicable by nature and didn't fully believe in his words. Instead, the general's gaze turned and an immense pressure encompassed Feng Lin's heart. He wanted to interrogate Feng Lin's heart, not allowing any form of concealment to slip from his observation. Feng Lin took a deep breath and activated his spirit gene fully, strengthening his mind and breaking away from this astonishing prowess on his spirit. He said, "Neither humble nor pushy, General, this Japanese is twisting the facts completely. I didn't do anything from the beginning until the end. It was the Japanese who made the first move and applied mental illusion art on me. However, it's a pity that he wasn't very skilled in the technique and suffered from the backlash instead. Who can be blamed for this? As for what the truth is, there should be AI surveillance here. General will know what happened after taking a look." Since the Japanese were so vile and vicious, Feng Lin naturally wouldn't stand on ceremony either. His words were like blades, piercing on the Japanese's hearts and making them sound worthless. Baka. The Japanese were all cursing in their hearts, almost on the extent of stamping with rage. However, since the general was talking to Feng Lin now, they didn't dare to interrupt. The general's eyelids rose. He was taken by surprise to see Feng Lin's finesse and composure. He was a grand cultivator. And under his vitality pressure, only elite cultivators would be able to smile and talk like Feng Lin. However, the person facing him right now was merely an interstellar cultivator, yet he could remain so calm. He had the conclusion that this person's character was strong and firm enough. Even without checking out the surveillance, the general had a good impression of Feng Lin and put a little more trust in his words. He assessed Feng Lin and nodded. Next, he used his authority to open up the AI system to check out the surveillance records. The Japanese group's countenances changed drastically and felt that things weren't exactly in their favor. As the surveillance projection came out, the truth was revealed. From this point of view, Yamato High School's principal personally led their students to provoke Feng Lin and Principal Huang, but failed to put up a front and got reprimanded instead. Watching the playback of the surveillance system, the Japanese couldn't help but reveal their twisted expressions. Everyone threw them the nasty look. These Japanese were really despicable. It was one thing to bully the weak, since it was a dog-eat-dog world. This was the brutal rules of nature. However, they were weak, yet they had challenged the strong, which resulted in them getting slapped in the face. This was something that people looked down in any eras. After the truth was revealed, the general's gaze shot out coldly. The Japanese instantly felt as if they had been placed in an ice cavern. All of them were shivering and wearing horrified expressions as if facing heavenly pressure. They didn't dare to resist at all. Feng Lin watched at the side, smiling coldly. These were how the Japanese were. Even after 10,000 years had passed, their inferior nature didn't change at all. They liked to bully the weak. But when they encountered the strong, they had no backbone at all. They were really shameless. This case ends here. Yamato High School, you guys are the first to start the provocation. Since you guys are the ones who are unskilled, it's your just dessert to be crippled. If you wanted to create trouble, then I'll chase you guys out. The general let out a cold snort. He didn't deal out any punishments, but merely announced domineeringly that this case was now over. The Japanese didn't dare to resist and felt extremely aggrieved. Feng didn't care about this at all. He didn't suffer any harm, but had crippled a candidate from the Yamato High School instead. He wasn't on the losing end at all. Since he was the one at the advantage, there wasn't a need for him to be pushy and create trouble. The most important thing at the moment was still the application test for the Cosmos universities. He mustn't hold up the important things just because of a moment of rashness. After suppressing the conflict, the general walked up to everyone and announced loudly, "We'll be starting the application test for the Cosmos universities now." Although everyone stands on equal ground before the Cosmos universities, and every school has an application quota, the more this is so, the more intense the competition is. It far surpasses your imagination. Despite how big the universe is and how Cosmos universities are top schools, there are only 10 of them. Moreover, each school only takes in about 10,000 people. This means that there are only a total of 100,000 vacancies. Although this may sound like a lot, across the countless candidates in the entire interstellar space, the chances of getting in are 1 out of 100 billion. The chances are extremely slim, and one would need to go through levels of selection. The first round of selection is on Earth, the second is across the entire solar system, and only those who emerge victorious at the very end would be able to walk out into the universe, competing against all sorts of geniuses from interstellar empires. The final quota. His voice was low and strong, knocking into everyone's heart. All the students drew back their smiles and were wearing extremely solemn expressions now. Even though they were considered geniuses on Earth, they were nothing in the solar system, let alone the universe. There would always be stronger people out there. The universe was too big, and if one didn't explore it, they would never be able to imagine how strong their opponents could be. Feng clenched his fists tightly, and there were scorching flames in his eyes. To think that there were so many tiers to Cosmos University's examination. It was a grand banquet that involved the entire universe, gathering young geniuses from all corners of the interstellar space. What a magnificent sight would it be? Just the thought of it would make one feel excited. Your first test on Earth is to battle against these subordinates of mine. Each of my subordinates is an extremely capable warrior. Each of them is an interstellar cultivator with the vitality of at least 70. They will be your opponents. Only by defeating them will you be able to prove that your strength can earn you the right to apply for the Cosmos universities, to pass the first round of the tests. Otherwise, you'd be incompetent. How could you dream of competing against those great talents in the universe when you can't even win against my subordinates? The candidates were taken by surprise. Interstellar cultivators with a vitality of over 70 were usually extraordinary. They had been through massacres in battlefields and their battle prowess far surpassed that of ordinary cultivators. Meanwhile, these high schoolers were just students and didn't feel confident to fight against these hot-blooded warriors. Before the fight even started, they already felt fearful and cowardly. Feng entered the crowd, concealing his strength while he secretly observed these interstellar cultivators. All of them wore uniforms and had slender figures. Their muscles were evenly distributed and strong, allowing them to be agile yet not lose their strength or explosive prowess. They emitted a faint ferocious air and didn't look easy to deal with. These warriors had experienced massacres in countless battlefields. How strong were they actually? He would find out after testing them out. A hint of anticipation rose in Feng heart. The other candidates appeared very anxious. However, the general was swift and decisive. He didn't give them any time to react and spoke up in a deep voice again. His gaze was cold as he stared at everyone present. No one dared to make a sound. This is the first round of tests for the application to the Cosmos universities. After hearing this, who approves? Who objects? Chapter 184, All's fair in war, no one objects. No one objected. The general's words might sound calm, but it was extremely domineering and left no room for discussion. Who would be so foolish as to find trouble for themselves? Judging by the general's domineering disposition, once objections were raised, the person would be chased out. Moreover, they would lose the precious quota to apply to the Cosmos universities. The general took a glance around the place and nodded, grinning without reservations. Then the tests start now. Kids, enter one by one. My subordinates can no longer wait. With a bellow, the candidates from the various schools entered in succession. Feng Lin nodded toward Earth High School's principal and followed the crowd to enter the Earth's Cultivation Association. Under the AI's guidance, he entered a confined but spacious room. The surrounding walls were all made from metal, and there were no gaps at all. A burly figure, who was over 2 meters tall, had been standing there and waiting for a while. "You're Feng Lin? I've been waiting for you." The interstellar cultivator turned around and threw a casual glance toward Feng Lin, sluggishly waving his hand. His expression appeared to be unbridled, as if asking Feng Lin to freely demonstrate his capabilities. His posture was sluggish, not putting up any defense at all. It was as if he didn't give the slightest regard to Feng Lin. Feng Lin's eyes narrowed. He was neither infuriated nor deceived by the acting. He realized that even though this interstellar cultivator appeared careless, his body was relaxed and powers were gathered in his body secretly. The man appeared very steady and was raring to go. The moment Feng Lin fell for his act and moved recklessly, what awaited him would be a strike that was quick as lightning. Feng Lin would end up falling for the other party's trap. These words, which made it seem as if the man was looking down on Feng Lin, were just his attempt to numb Feng Lin and make him careless. After understanding the crucial point, the corners of Feng Lin's lips curled up into a hint of a smile. He wasn't shocked, but was gladdened instead. This was interesting. All's fair in a battle. As expected of interstellar cultivators. They were well versed in battles and didn't have any useless rules. In real battles, there was no fairness. Any means could be used, including hidden weapons, poison, and firearms. Regardless if it was open and above-board means or vicious and low-handed means, as long as one could emerge victorious, then that would be a good means to choose. In a life-or-death battle, who would care about the rules? That's pedantry. The people who had survived were the winners. History had also been written by the winners. Seeing that this interstellar cultivator's gaze was filled with ridicule and judgment, yet still feigning a relaxed and careless condition, Feng Lin let out a cold smile. He said outright, "Stop with the act. This move is useless against me." Would a warrior who is well experienced in warfare underestimate their enemies? It won't be just a humiliation toward your strength, but also underestimating other people's intellect. Hearing Feng Lin say that, the interstellar cultivator immediately turned solemn, and a gleam shot out from his eyes. There was no longer the laid-back attitude he had had before. His gaze locked onto Feng Lin, taking a long look at him. He then said in a deep voice, "You're different, pretty different from those students. You aren't a newbie in battles. It seems that you've also experienced life and death battles, with rich battle experiences. When those students saw my attitude, they all think that there's an opportunity to take advantage of. In the end, all of them were taken care of instantly. You're the only exception." Feng Lin smiled and didn't reply. He had gained his battle prowess from the fights in Mars's internal war. He had fought even against elite cultivators, so how could ordinary people who grew up living sheltered lifestyles be able to compare against him? He didn't care to explain himself and merely put up a stance, forming yin and yang with his palms, like two sides of a mirror. They contained many different changes and make it hard for others to grasp. When the interstellar cultivator saw Feng Lin like this, He knew that this student wouldn't be easy to deal with. His palms took on claw shape and placed before his chest, taking on the form of a ferocious tiger. He grinned and the flesh on his face trembled as if he was a savage tiger. You guys on Earth don't know how big the universe is. My ancient martial art is a high-grade low-tier genetic martial art, Star Tiger Killing Fist. It imitates a ferocious beast in the universe, Black Star Scaled Tiger. Be careful. Stop with the crap. If you want to battle, then let's get on with it. Seeing that the man was blabbering on, Feng Lin couldn't be bothered to continue listening. In an actual battle, who would reveal their details to the opponent? When a warrior did something like this, it made Feng Lin even more furious. Feng Lin didn't bother to speak any crap and stomped down heavily on the ground, turning into an afterimage and shot out elusively. The interstellar cultivator's eyes glared wide open, feeling infuriated. He gave Feng Lin guidance out of goodwill, but was ignored. Feng Lin really didn't know what was good for him. However, the more this was so, the more he didn't lose his cool. Instead, he became increasingly wary against Feng Lin. Having rich battle experiences, he understood that people like Feng Lin were the strong people who had experienced the flames of war and were difficult to deal with. He mustn't treat Feng Lin as an ordinary student, else he might suffer. If he was defeated by the first student he came across, wouldn't he be ridiculed by his comrades forever? It had become a taint in his entire life. Star Tiger Black Claw. He let out an enraged bellow and made a move. Using his 10 fingers as claws, he tore the space and condensed strong gales rapidly. The color of the gales deepened, changing from being colorless to yellow and eventually black. The black wind formed dangerous-looking claw imprints. The powerful, sharp force of the wind could tear through space, creating a shrill sound that threatened to break one's eardrums. Feng Lin's figure paused slightly in the air before his legs swept out like wheels of wind and fire. Feng Lin dispersed the black wind, his attack reaching the opponent despite being the one to make the later move. Silver light flashed on his forehead, and his spirit force swept out like a tempest. It curled up in the air, forming a wave that could be seen by the naked eye. All of a sudden, the wave was released explosively. The interstellar cultivator felt as if his soul had been struck by an invisible fist. His body trembled slightly, and his eyes entered a daze. Right at this moment, Feng Lin got close to the man with great speed. His 2 hands were like the spinning yin and yang, like butterflies moving between flowers, forming a variety of changes that unknowingly attracted one's attention. The person would be engulfed by a black hole and continue to sink deeper, unable to draw himself out. Yin-yang fantasy. Charming the opponent, Feng Lin's hands moved very quickly and slapped fiercely toward the man's temples. His movements were quick as lightning, bursting out instantly and viciously. He wanted to take down this opponent with a single blow. The wind formed from the palm attack was fierce. Ha! The interstellar cultivator had plenty of experience on the battlefield. And under the baptism of war and blood, his battle prowess was extremely powerful. When he sensed that something wasn't right, he let out an explosive bellow. At this moment, his eyes turned beastly red, and ferocious bone-chilling aura rose to the top. He forcibly broke through the illusions. Hiss. His claw art was now sharper and fiercer. His expression was so savage that he was like the Azura who had crawled out from the hell, wanting to tear Feng Lin, a person who dared to offend him, into dust. The fists and claws clashed. Feng Lin felt a majestic power gushing over, and he quickly retreated. The interstellar cultivator had just retaliated, so how could he possibly allow Feng Lin to back off easily? He pounced forth like a ferocious tiger, unwilling to give up until he achieved his goals. All the muscles on his body bulged, and he arched forward. A mysterious ice-cold aura distorted the space, forming an indistinct image of a savage tiger. Even though Feng Lin's character was tenacious, he was also stunned for a short moment. His spirit force was scattered, and a cowardly emotion rose uncontrollably. He didn't dare to resist. What kind of power was this? To think that it could interfere with mental energy, even his mental hypnosis was useless. Feng Lin was taken by surprise, and he suddenly thought of cultivation knowledge that only a few people knew about. This was Bloody Baleful Aura. Chapter 185, Baleful Gene. The interstellar cultivator pounced over fiercely, grabbing out with his sharp hands that had a faint layer of blood color on it now. The image of a ferocious tiger took form behind his back. It raised its head to let out a long howl, sending out endless ferocious aura and shaking everyone's heart. Even though Feng Lin's mind was very strong, he was also shaken for a moment. However, he immediately got back to his senses and reacted. This was the bloody baleful auras that were unique to warriors who were well experienced in battles. Mental gene plus bloody gene equals baleful gene. It was said that the warriors who had survived life and death battles on the battlefields would naturally have an Azura aura. They would turn it into extraordinary characteristics to reinforce their bodies and increase the killing prowess of their moves. During the battle, this Azura aura would be able to shake one's soul and cause the opponents to feel fear. This was the unique means that those powerful warriors had. Using the baleful gene that was evolved from the combination of the mental gene and bloody gene, the warrior would be able to refine baleful auras that allowed them to be unfearful of gods and ghosts, and causing all evil to shun them. Baleful auras were refined from mixing the warrior's battle intent as well as the bloody auras absorbed from killing enemies. Those warriors had experienced life and death battles on the battlefields, and their minds and spirits had been tempered by blood and flames of the war, reaching a level of being hardened like steel. They wouldn't fear any illusory arts. Under the impact of the baleful auras, they could instantly wipe out the illusion and be completely resistant to it. This point stood out a lot even in the cold weapons era of ancient Earth. The majestic military formation had taken form, and overwhelming baleful auras gushed over. Any trickery or techniques would be useless. The targets would be turned into nothingness, being instantly crushed into dregs. This was what Feng Lin was facing now. He kept on using his illusory arts, but they were useless against this guy. Each and every move made by him was extremely vicious and brutal after being reinforced by the baleful auras. They brought along an imposing aura of wanting to repel all evil, causing Feng Lin to keep on retreating. Feng Lin realized that the baleful gene was a powerful supporting gene that bore a close resemblance to the adrenaline gene. Moreover, they were even a notch higher in grade. Under its reinforcement, the interstellar cultivator was like an Azura in the mortal world, being extraordinarily vicious. At this stage, any scheme was useless. Only a head-on fight could influence the outcome of this battle. Feng Lin didn't waste his time on crap talk and rapidly changed his moves, performing the Vedra subduing devil fist. His entire body became extremely tough and sturdy like King Kong, and he engaged this well-seasoned veteran in a fight. Feng Lin's opponent was very vicious, and he emitted a faint blood color from all parts of his body. It was as if he were a frenzied demon, clawing out fiercely and creating waves of sharp gales. King Kong versus Azura. Both parties were very brave, and it was an all-out battle between them. They deployed punches and kicks, directing all sorts of fierce techniques onto their opponent's body. They didn't put up any defenses and kept punching out. The collisions were non-stop, and they sounded like muffled thunder. With each collision, their body would sway and the spot where they were hit would feel as if it had been struck by a great hammer. Their eyes narrowed as they sensed the powerful body-strengthening gene awakened in each other's body. It was very hard to deal with. Vedra carrying a cauldron. Feng Lin let out a deep bellow, no longer holding back. He raised both of his hands as if he were an enraged King Kong who was lifting up a huge cauldron that weighed 300,000 caddies. Suddenly, his two fists came smashing down fiercely like hammers. Sensing that this attack was very powerful, the interstellar cultivator's eyes narrowed as his hands formed the huge mouth of a ferocious beast which opened widely toward the sky. His 10 fingers were bent like eerie sharp teeth, wanting to engulf the stars in the sky into its stomach and crushing them with its teeth. The black star-scaled tiger wasn't an ordinary ferocious beast. It was a dominating existence in the universe. When the mature black star-scaled tiger gave birth to a young cub, it would toss the cub onto an uninhabited planet and no longer care about them. The young cub would engulf asteroids for food as its body continued to grow. Its entire body would be filled with tough scales that far surpassed that of alloy's toughness. Their appetite would also get increasingly stronger, and they would gradually start to engulf bigger satellites, planets, and stars. The energies in their body would gather endlessly, turning into a natural black hole after the black star-scaled tigers grew old and died. This was how the black star-scaled tigers got their name. This attack that the man performed was one that simulated the black star-scaled tigers engulfing planets. Even though it only bore a 0.001 resemblance, this was already very terrifying. The fists and claws clashed. Both of them parted upon contact. Under the 300,000 caddies' impact, the interstellar cultivator's burly build was set flying and coming to a stop only after he crashed fiercely into the wall. A clear impression of a human-shaped dent was left on his back. Feng Lin stood there, not moving. However, he frowned and looked at his hands. Many apparent claw marks were left on his skin, faintly revealing traces of blood. That attack had been very fierce, and even the stone monkey genes strengthened and tough skin almost broke. As expected of an interstellar cultivator who fought for his life in battlefields. His means far surpassed that of people at the same level as him, and he was fierce and brutal. What a strong lad. His vitality is definitely above mine. The interstellar cultivator was also staring at Feng Lin with a grim countenance. He had great battle experience and had instantly made an assessment of the situation. However, he didn't panic at all. The battles in interstellar space were very complicated, and he had been through all sorts of situations. He was very clear that real battle prowess wasn't of equivalent value to one's vitality. Vitality was only a representation of one's foundations, and it would still be dependent on one's means to see how much strength they could unleash. Receiving a setback from one blow. His countenance became increasingly savage, and his two hands grabbed out like tiger claws as his body laid low on the ground. His back muscles bulged up and his skin had a black color like patches of black scales. His defense increased tremendously, and he seemed to have turned into a human-shaped black star-scaled tiger, sending baleful auras all around. Star Tiger Hurricane. The interstellar cultivator's leg stomped down heavily on the ground as he leaped into the air, pouncing over. His body spun like a top. His muscles trembled, bringing about strong air currents. His entire body was encompassed in a tornado, and the gusts of wind were like blades, slashing everything into tiny pieces wherever anything was obstructing their paths. This scene was as if a black star-scaled tiger was flying through interstellar space, naturally absorbing the star's energies and causing a particle torrent to blow. The interstellar cultivator took the form of a tiger, sweeping the particles in the air and sending out overwhelming baleful auras. It instantly engulfed Feng Lin. Feng Lin only felt as if the surroundings were filled with black shadows that surrounded him. The claw forces were fierce and brutal, with each move attacking Feng Lin's critical parts. The attacks were like raging wind and storm, not allowing Feng Lin any chance to take a break. Feng Lin was entangled and unable to break out from the attack. He instinctively drew circles with his two hands before his chest, releasing palm forces incessantly to form the power of chaos. It was as if there was a sturdy wall that protected him, leaving no gaps for anything to pass by and capable of blocking all the claw attacks outside. Primordial Chaos Flag Imprint. However, defending passively wasn't Feng Lin's style. He leaped up high in the air. His spirit force was sent out, moving the air and turning into a material fog that supported him upward. What? The interstellar cultivator raised his head and watched as Feng Lin rode on the clouds, flying in the sky. He hadn't expected that this lad would have the ability to fly. This kid was trouble. If he were to keep on escaping, it would be very hard for him to attack Feng Lin, who was in the sky. He had to say that the ability to fly allowed people to break away from the Earth's restraint and would have more means available to them. Even the interstellar cultivator felt that this was difficult to deal with. However, how could Feng Lin possibly be a person who would merely persist in escaping? He abruptly raised his hands high like an upright and divine character who opened up the world and leaped down from the sky. It was as if the legendary Mount Buzhou had abruptly collapsed, wanting to shatter the entire mortal world into dust. Sky-flipping hammer imprint. A fist force of 300,000 caddies released through the air in a single point. It was as if 10,000 tons worth of seawater was pressing down on the interstellar cultivator's body, encompassing him and causing him to be unable to escape. There was no way to avoid this punch. The interstellar cultivator was shocked as he realized this. Although he was strong, Feng Lin was clearly stronger than him. No matter how strong a person was, there would always be someone stronger out there. Chapter 186. There would always be someone stronger. Head directed downward while legs upward. Feng Lin was inverted in the air as he plunged down abruptly with his two hammer-like fists, performing the sky-flipping hammer imprint. It came down with a fierce pressure as if he was going to smash the entire human world, causing the mountains to collapse. Facing the violent wind produced from the fist force, the interstellar cultivator raised his head with great difficulty. His entire face was distorted from the force, and his gaze was that of shock. What a violent punch this was! There was no way of dodging at all. This was a blatant overpowering with strength and no fanciful techniques involved. However, the more this was so, the harder it was to defend. The moves seemed simple and plain, returning to the simplest state of things, appearing as if they didn't have many changes. However, there were no loopholes either. This was real power. A person of great strength can defeat 10 people who know martial arts. The only way to break the myriad of changes was to forcibly take it head-on. There was no other way around it. Damn it! Don't underestimate me. The interstellar cultivator's eyes were filled with fury, and strength surged up in his body like waves. Star Tiger blasting the sky. He leaped up and smashed head first like a mature black star-scaled tiger, charging out toward the scorching sun. It was as if he was going to smash and shatter everything in his path. The two fists crashed with the head, neither side giving in. Feng Lin's body was instantly sent flying back, and he did dozens of somersaults, negating all of the force and once again stabilizing his body. On the other hand, things weren't as easy for the interstellar cultivator. His body plunged down like a meteor, crashing fiercely into the ground and sinking deep into it. He expended great efforts to crawl out, but the land under his feet had become a huge crater. Feng Lin's vitality was strong, being at 90 or higher, and his means weren't weak either. At this moment, the interstellar cultivator knew that he had to bring out his trump card. After assessing the situation and acknowledging that he was at a disadvantage, he knew that he'd definitely lose if he didn't make any change in tactics. He gritted his teeth, unwilling to be defeated just like that, and made a decision. Bloodfiend Azura body. Baleful auras were absorbed into his body, and he emitted a demonic red glow, turning into a blood figure. The atmosphere became eerie, cold, and brutal. Feng Lin immediately got his guards up. He had no idea what strange means the other party was using again. Kacha. The interstellar cultivator's body rapidly shot up in height, and he grew to a height of over 3 meters within a short moment. Green veins popped up all over his body, as if many chains were entangled on it. His face was savage and distorted, extremely fierce and terrifying. He had turned into an Asura who had crawled out from the bloody hell, emitting a great killing aura and wanting to annihilate all living creatures. Feng Lin's eyes contracted intensely. He felt that this interstellar cultivator had gone all out, using this means that would provide explosive powers but having severe consequences thereafter. It seemed that he mustn't hold back either. Feng Lin let out a deep bellow, and his body underwent a change as well. He fully stimulated his stone monkey gene, turning into a jade figure that could destroy everything and had tough skin. Vajra Dragon Claw. His hands took the form of dragon claws and pounced forth. He struck with his elbows, knocked with his shoulders, kicked with his legs. Every part of his body had turned into a weapon that could destroy everything in their path. His hands formed extremely fierce sharp claws that grabbed out toward his opponent's throat. The interstellar cultivator took the form of an Asura with flushing red eyes, as if he was a maniacal demon. He kept on performing the Star Tiger killing fist. Each move was out to kill. Dragon claws versus tiger claws. Neither party backed off, and they crazily attacked each other. Sparks flew around, leaving behind astonishing traces. However, unlike the faint white marks on Feng Lin's body, the interstellar cultivator's body was covered in blood. Red bloody flesh could be seen from his wounds. He kept on retreating and gradually fell on the disadvantage in this head-on exchange. He wasn't a match for Feng Lin at all. Feng Lin performed his moves at full power, not giving his opponent a chance to take a breather. He went head-on, fighting to see which party was stronger. Although his opponent's body was extremely tough, Feng Lin had absolute confidence in the stone monkey gene. This was a mutated primeval gene that had been strengthened to over 10 points. This was his greatest advantage, and even if he only performed a low-grade low-tier genetic martial art, the Vajra subduing devil fist, he was able to suppress his opponent. No matter how strong the martial art was, they had no life. It would all be dependent on the individual to see how great the prowess was. Although the Vajra subduing devil fist was of low grade and was a far cry from his opponent's Star Tiger killing fist, it was the martial arts that could best display Feng Lin's advantage. The abilities of the Vajra gene and the stone monkey gene were extremely similar and could perfectly unleash Feng Lin's specialty. Things turned out the way he expected them to. After many rounds of clashes between them, the interstellar cultivator's expression became distorted. He was clearly in great pain. Even an Asura, after receiving consecutive heavy damages, would just be a sheep that was waiting to be slaughtered. Feng Lin was waiting. He was waiting for his opponent to completely break down before he retaliated and defeated him, no longer giving his opponent a chance to fight back. The interstellar cultivator's hands kept on trembling. He was slowly finding it hard to hang on. He also realized this, and his heart sank. Feng Lin was clearly trying to drag things out and torment him slowly. If he didn't find a way to break out of this situation, he would definitely be defeated. Preda Asura. Red light gleamed intensely in the interstellar cultivator's eyes, and he pounced over like a hungry ghost. His claw-like hands emitted eerie black aura, and he turned into a ghostly shadow as he pounced over, wanting to engulf Feng Lin. This attack might seem ferocious, but in any case, the stronger one was, the greater the loophole and the most fragile the person would be. This was the chance. A cold gleam flashed in Feng Lin's eyes, and his spirit force erupted out explosively, turning into material psi-force. The Psi-Force was like a bunch of invisible ropes that tangled onto his opponent's body. Feng Lin pulled fiercely, causing the interstellar cultivator to lose his balance and reveal a great loophole. What? Such a powerful Psi-Force? How was this possible? The interstellar cultivator felt as if he was restrained by heavy metal chains, and his movements were restricted and thus slowed down. Taking advantage of the situation while the opponent was in a precarious position. Before he could break out from the restraints of Feng Lin's powerful Psi-Force, his scalp turned numb and a sharp aura locked onto him from afar. He had the feeling that great trouble was coming. Immortal slaying sword imprint. He raised his head and saw a pair of sword fingers rapidly magnifying before his eyes, taking up his entire vision. What a fierce sword attack! It had the intent of slaying immortals, wiping out gods, and destroying the entire world. I will die. If I were to be hit by this sword, I would die. His expression was that of horror. He knew that he was unable to take this sword attack at all. There would always be someone stronger out there. He finally came to a clear realization that Feng Lin was stronger than he was. If he were to be hit by this attack, the consequences would be dire. This was just a test, and there wasn't a need for any life or death battles. The interstellar cultivator's mind turned blank. He no longer had any foolish thoughts about his pride and decisively admitted his weakness. Hold on. I admit my loss. Pfft. The sword fingers came to a stop 3 inches away from his forehead. Drip, drip. Blood dripped down and the interstellar cultivator's face was drenched in cold sweat. There was a wound left on his forehead from the sword chi that had pierced through the space, revealing a bloody hole with blood flowing out from it. Thankfully, he had shouted out in time, thus, the sword chi only left marks on his skull and didn't pierce through his brain. Otherwise, the sword hadn't reached its target, but the prowess of the sword chi was terrifying. Do you admit your loss? Feng Lin tilted his head and looked at him expressionlessly. What a lunatic. Seeing Feng Lin's cold and emotionless face, the interstellar cultivator cursed inwardly. If he hadn't admitted his loss in time, this lunatic would have killed him. His fatty face broke into an extremely ugly smile that was worse than a crying face. He quickly nodded. Yes. I admit defeat. That's good then, said Feng Lin calmly. Without saying another word, he drew back his hand and left. The interstellar cultivator stood at the same spot, watching in a daze at Feng Lin's departing figure. Unknowingly, his back was drenched in cold sweat. Where on earth did this demon pop out from? How could there be such a genius in this retrogressive earth? It didn't make any sense. After Feng Lin had walked off far in the distance, the man felt an intense pain coming from his forehead, and only now did he react. He grabbed onto his forehead and howled. Feng Lin didn't stop and walked out from the Earth's Cultivation Association sparring area. He threw a glance and was slightly stunned to see that there were already 3 or 4 figures standing there. These people were wearing uniforms and were candidates from other high schools on Earth. Despite the fact that he had gone all out and crushed his opponent, he wasn't the first candidate to defeat the assigned interstellar cultivator. Feng Lin wore an amused smile. As expected of the applicants for the Cosmos universities, there were stronger people and hidden talents out there. Chapter 187, Lone Wolf. Feng Lin, you came out. Upon seeing Feng Lin's figure, the headmaster instantly came over to welcome him. Seeing that Feng Lin was fine other than his clothing becoming tattered, the headmaster sighed with relief. Although he didn't know if Feng Lin passed the Cosmos University's first round of examinations or not, everything was good as long as Feng Lin wasn't injured. At most, even if he failed, he could still apply to enter the Interstellar Empire University. This Feng Lin was the precious treasure of Earth High School. the headmaster naturally didn't want him to be injured. He wanted Feng Lin to help the Earth High School fight for reputation and glory. Seeing how concerned the headmaster was for him, although he knew the headmaster's real intention, Feng Lin wouldn't ignore him. Feng Lin nodded and calmly replied, "Yep, I passed the test." "It's good that you passed." The headmaster smiled and nodded. But a moment later, his eyes suddenly widened in shock. It felt like a thunderbolt went off in his mind. He then stuttered, What did you say?" "Did you say you passed the test?" Feng Lin was helpless. Why would there be so many doubts just because he displayed his strength? Ultimately, he was simply too weak in the past, and the impression he created was very difficult to destroy. He could only change the impressions of others about him step by step. He nodded once more. Yes. After hearing Feng Lin's confirmation, this didn't seem to be false. The headmaster excitedly trembled. What a surprise! The majority of the geniuses were still in the midst of the test, but Feng Lin actually finished it so quickly. He initially thought Feng Lin was sent out because he was instantly defeated by an interstellar cultivator. He didn't expect such a surprising answer from Feng Lin. From the time he went in until now, not more than 10 minutes had passed. Did he already pass the exam? How terrifying was this? Those interstellar cultivators were warriors who were tempered through blood and war. Their methods were extremely tyrannical, and their strengths would far surpass those on the same level. The vast majority of students from high schools could all be likened to the flowers grown in a greenhouse. Their vitality stats might be high, and it was already considered very good if they could unleash 70% to 80% of their combat prowess. They would surely suffer a disadvantage if they were to fight against these warriors who had participated in battles of life and death. Also, there were over 10,000 students that applied for the Cosmos University. Up until now, only 4 people had slaughtered their way out and passed the test. Feng Lin was number 5. How strong was Feng Lin exactly? To his astonishment, as a headmaster of a high school and an elite cultivator, he actually had no way to measure Feng Lin's strength. Although right now he was a realm higher than Feng Lin, his vitality stats had just barely broken through the 100-point mark. Also, his position was that of a civilian post and not a military one, thus, he wasn't proficient in combat. Who knows, maybe he wasn't even a match for his own student. The headmaster felt more and more ashamed as he thought about it. He silently sighed. The latter waves of the lake would push the front waves to the shore while the front waves die. Feng Lin shook his head. He ignored the shock that the headmaster was feeling and silently observed the 4 others. He discovered that these 4 people respectively came from different regions. There was a young man with flaxen-colored hair from the white race, and he had a stone sword strapped to his back. In this interstellar era, were there actually people using cold weapons? This caused Feng Lin to cast a few more glances at him. As for the other 3, one was a tall and skinny Indian, and the other was a young man with a face filled with pockmarks. It was unknown where this young man came from. The final person was a Japanese wearing a black robe. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness and venom, staring at Feng Lin like a poisonous snake's eyes. His gaze was filled with malicious intent. When he was observing these people were also observing him. These people silently surveyed each other, and they could feel the threat they posed to each other. Their gazes were all extremely heavy. Feng Lin silently nodded. The vitality stats of these 4 were all extremely high, and they also possessed unusual methods. None of them was inferior to him. Although Earth had declined, there were 2 billion in terms of population. It was pretty normal that there would be some heaven-defying geniuses appearing. Clearly, it wasn't him alone who had miraculous encounters. He made a mental note not to underestimate any opponent. Feng Lin then took up a position. Time slowly passed and more people came out. The vast majority had wounds all over their bodies and were clearly dispirited. These were evidently the failures. Only a minority lifted their heads high and walked with their chests puffed out despite them panting with exhaustion. A look of pride could also be seen on their faces. There was no need to think further. These people should be the students who had passed the test. They exuded a dauntless and intrepid aura. Out of the 10,000 students who had applied to the Cosmos University, now, less than 100 remained. The passing rate was less than 1%. After those who had failed left, the great hall outside the Cultivation Association was emptied out. Those who had passed the test started to discuss excitedly with each other. Upon passing the first round of examinations on Earth, the following round's scope would encompass the entire solar system. With a bunch of supreme geniuses gathering together, the competition would be even more intense. Only by working together, taking care of each other, would one have a higher probability of passing the next test. Only Feng Lin and a few others kept their own counsel, standing to the side. They projected a clear aura that they wanted to remain alone and not mingle with the others, becoming lone wolves. Feng Lin, are you planning on fighting alone? Why don't you interact with others and form good relationships so you can take care of each other? In this case, the future rounds of examination might become more relaxed for you. Upon seeing Feng Lin not taking the initiative to form friendships at all, the headmaster was silently worried for him. More relaxed? Feng Lin calmly smiled, not agreeing with the headmaster's opinion. Since he signed up to register for the Cosmos University's examination, why would he still want things to be more relaxed? The rate of enrollment for the 10 universities was capped at 10,000 people despite the billions in population. The probability of being enrolled was extremely minuscule. In Feng Lin's mind, those who had the mindset of wanting to relax during the examinations were merely courting their own deaths. He thought things through very clearly. Although there were almost 100 people passing the first round of examination, at the very end, maybe not even one could enroll in the Cosmos University. The solar system was a backward star region, and its standard of cultivation wasn't considered high. In interstellar space, what about those developed star regions? Their geniuses would be truly the elites out of all cultivators. If one couldn't even pass an examination which scope was merely limited to the solar system, how could they contend against those true geniuses? Ultimately, he still had to depend on himself. Maybe he could pass the second round by grouping up together. But what about after that? When only he alone remained, who could he depend on? Although Feng Lin appreciated the headmaster's good intentions, he had his ideas. Only true weaklings needed to group up. Cultivation was destined to be a lonely journey, and being able to endure loneliness was an attribute many true experts had to have. Only by being strong independently could that strength last forever. Other methods were not worthy of a single mention. Seeing that Feng Lin had decided his path, the headmaster shook his head and no longer tried to persuade him. He knew that Feng Lin depended on himself to rise, and his unique perspective toward cultivation had already been fixed. It wasn't something others could sway. After a while, the students emerged one after another. Whether they had passed or failed, the first round of examination had already concluded. That general walked over again and spoke in a loud and penetrating voice. Congratulations to all of you. You all can defeat my valiant subordinates. Seems like you guys are truly geniuses, and not those useless bums who simply appeared strong on the outside but weak on the inside. Congratulations to all of you for obtaining the opportunity to participate in the next round. But don't be happy too early. The solar system is very vast while Earth is very small. You guys are still insignificant when placed in the perspective of the entire solar system. I can reveal some info to you all that for the next round of examination, The format would be a free-for-all slaughter. Humans have countless enemies hidden in the dark of the universe. If you geniuses from the human race aren't proficient in combat and slaughter, you would be no different from trash. The second round of exams will start a month later. Prepare well. For the sake of your life, for the sake of your future, do not be careless. You must know that the second round is different from the first. All of you could die. His cold voice rang out with force and was akin to smashing a huge rock on the chests of those listening to it. Chapter 188, Visit from the Clan Leader. The flying shuttle shot into the sky. After knowing the information pertaining to the second round of examination from that general, Feng Lin and the headmaster soon departed the Cultivation Association and returned to the Huaxia city. There's one more month before the start of the second round of examination. Feng Lin, do you have any plans? Asked the headmaster. The further Feng Lin could reach on his path, the greater the benefits his school would receive. The headmaster naturally had to be concerned. Next, I will do my best to cultivate and strengthen my genes. I wish to break through before the second round of examination. Feng Lin spoke in a heavy voice, revealing a little about his future plans. What? The strengthening tally of your genes isn't maxed yet, but your vitality stats have already reached above 90? To what degree have you strengthened your genes? What mythological path are you on? The headmaster was clearly extremely shocked. Feng Lin's achievements simply couldn't be explained by the logic of cultivation. Although Feng Lin was his student, he was cloaked in layers of mystery. The headmaster had no way to see through him. Facing his questioning, Feng Lin merely smiled, no longer saying anything. The headmaster himself also knew that he touched on a taboo subject. How would cultivators be willing to divulge any of their secrets to others? He pondered a little and continued, since you already have a plan, I will issue the unlimited leave permit for you. You just have to show up in time to participate in the examination. Many thanks, headmaster. Feng Lin nodded in thanks. Those classmates and schoolmates in the surroundings all had looks of envy in their gazes when they saw this. The headmaster had given Feng Lin the greatest degree of freedom because he knew that a true genius couldn't be tied down by regulations and restrictions. Only with freedom would a true genius be able to walk further on the path he had chosen. This was also what Feng Lin wanted. After the two of them came to a consensus and the flying shuttle reached Huaxia City, Feng Lin left alone. Next, he had to enter seclusion and cultivate, making preparations for the second round of examination. As long as he maxed out the strengthening tally of the spirit gene, he would have hope of becoming an elite cultivator. If he wanted to pass the second round and travel even further on his path, he had to make a breakthrough in his cultivation. No delays could be permitted. If not, although he could be considered at the peak among his peers in the solar system given his current cultivation base, he was still not strong enough to contend with those supreme geniuses in the universe. After returning home, just when he was preparing to inform his parents and made some arrangements for his seclusion, he suddenly discovered a familiar figure in his residence. It was none other than his clan leader. Why did he suddenly come to my house? Feng Lin's heart stirred. There would be no waves without wind. The clan leader suddenly came to visit him. Most probably, the reason behind it was nothing good. But now, he was confident enough to deal with any situation. There was no need for him to feel fear at all. Father, mother, I've returned. Feng Lin calmly entered his residence. When the clan leader saw Feng Lin, his eyes brightened. He came over and laughed. Feng Lin, congratulations on passing the first round of exams for the Cosmos University. How fast did news spread? But then again, when he had passed the test, he did see Feng Li and Feng Jinpeng. Clearly, the two of them had also applied for Cosmos University. Feng Lin furrowed his brows. He replied, Clan leader, you are too courteous. I've only passed the first round. There is still the second round of examination, which will be coming soon. Very humble, not bad at all. I'm precisely here because of the second round of the examination. The clan leader spoke with another layer of meaning behind his words. One who is undoubtedly solicitous is bound to be hiding evil intentions. Fenglin felt wary in his heart. The clan leader personally came by to pay a visit, so the matter he wanted to bring up definitely wouldn't be an ordinary thing. Fenglin simply smiled and made no reply. The clan leader silently mused at how tough it was to deal with this little fellow. The clan leader could only maintain his smile. Next, I have a request for you which you may find a little troublesome. Since I will find it troublesome, let's not talk about it then. Fenglin smiled, but his smile didn't look like a smile at all. Cough. The clan leader almost coughed out blood. He felt that Fenglin was truly out to anger him to his death. He could also see Fenglin's unrestrained and carefree nature. He no longer hid things and went straight to the point. Fenglin, the scope of the second round of examination will encompass the entire solar system. The competition is bound to be extremely intense. Within Feng Clan, including you, Fengli and Feng Jinpeng have both passed the first round as well. Why don't the three of you team up? As clansmen, if you all worked together, there would be less worry, and wouldn't the rate of you three passing the second round be much higher? So that is his intention. Fenglin coldly laughed in his heart. This suggestion seemed good on the surface, but this wasn't the case in reality. Fenglin already had his plans. He had too many secrets on him. Before he had the strength to absolutely guard himself, he didn't want to interact too closely with others. For those who could become interstellar cultivators, who would be fools? If his secrets were to be exposed, things naturally would be dire for him. Besides, there was a month worth of time. Fenglin would do his best in seclusion and put in all his efforts to break through. As long as he could become an elite cultivator, why was there a need for him to team up with others? Fenglin laughed. Clan leader is too polite. Fengli and Feng Jinpeng are both peak-level geniuses in the clan. It will be fine as long as they work together. As for me, I'm just a low-grade clansman. If I join them, I would only be a burden to them. His tone was polite, but it was a clear rejection. Fenglin was silently mocking the system which categorized clansmen into different grades. After the clan leader heard this, his expression instantly turned gloomy. This Fenglin was simply too stubborn. He was like a tough and smelly rock. Fenglin, to tell you the truth, you are the #1 genius in our clan. If you are willing to team up with Fengli and Feng Jinpeng to pass the second exam, I can promise you that starting from now, for the 1-month period before the start of the second round, the cultivation resources in our Feng clan's treasury can all be given to you. There will be no restrictions or limits. Seeing that his suggestion failed, the clan leader instantly got right to the point and started discussing conditions with Fenglin. Clan leader, I myself don't have any guarantees that I can pass the second exam. What do you mean by talking like I would pass it for sure? Let alone leading the two of them to pass with me. Fenglin had already come to a decision. His heart naturally wouldn't waver. The conditions proposed by the clan leader might sound extremely enticing to many people and was filled with sincerity. However, Fenglin didn't even give a damn. After his trip to Mars, he obtained the secret stash and foundation of the giant pharmaceutical company. Temporarily for now, he didn't lack in cultivation resources. Why would he need to take any resources from the Feng clan? Gifts blind the eyes. Why would he seek trouble for himself just for short-term benefits? Clan leader, I'm planning to head out to cultivate during the 1-month period, seeking to do my best to break through. Rather than teaming up for the sake of safety, why don't I increase my strength and try to cross over to the realm of elite cultivators. This would then be the greatest guarantee that I will pass the exam." After speaking, he didn't care about the clan leader's reply and went straight into his room, closing the door. The clan leader's gaze grew sinister as he felt rage in his heart. Feng Lin was giving him a headache. This Feng Lin could already be considered a peak interstellar cultivator. However, he had never received any kindness from the clan, and now that he had grown to this stage, it was going to be extremely difficult for the clan to control him. Also, it was evident that Feng Lin felt no sense of belonging to the Feng clan. Given Feng Lin's earlier domineering performances, the clan leader could tell that Feng Lin was a genius that only appeared once in a century. If he left the clan and joined some other organizations, that would naturally be a great loss to the clan. How would the clan leader be willing to accept this? The clan leader silently pondered, thinking of ideas. His gaze involuntarily turned to Feng Lin's twin siblings. Maybe he could. With regards to what the clan leader was planning, Feng Lin didn't know and didn't care. After some time, he bade farewell to his family and directly left the Feng clan grand building. Very swiftly, a silver-colored flying shuttle shot through the sky, moving toward the Pacific Ocean. The place he was going to next was the Mariana Trench. Chapter 189, Heavy Pressure in the Deep Sea. The boundless azure blue ocean could be seen in all directions, and below it was the gigantic Mariana Trench. It was so deep that one couldn't see the bottom at all. Darkness was everywhere, like the gigantic maw of a monster wanting to devour everything. A silver flying shuttle floated above the azure blue sea water. After that, it continued down and dived deep within, gleamingly bright. It was extremely conspicuous, resembling a silver-colored whale swimming in the ocean. The Flowerfruit Mountain Flying Shuttle was an extremely rare and valuable flying shuttle. It was able to adapt to the vast majority of environments in the universe. How could a mere oceanic trench on Earth be a problem for it? Feng Lin stood in the flying shuttle control cabin and stared at the gigantic trench. A look of contemplation appeared on his face. This was the deepest oceanic trench on Earth, the Mariana Trench. It was one of the most intense environments on the planet. Cultivation in the interstellar era could be classified into two categories. The first category was to strengthen the genes. The second one was to temper and refine one's abilities. Mythological genes were something humans were innately born with. Strengthening the genes would allow one's talent to achieve the greatest effect, giving rise to their full potential. As to the degree of power a cultivator could produce, that would have to depend on their efforts, practicing unceasingly. Cultivation was a path that had no end to it. One must know that even for the gods and divine beings of the legends, they weren't at the peak when they were born. Although they had supreme talent, they also worked hard and assiduously cultivated before they could ascend to the throne in the sky. Back then, when Sun Wukong was born, when he was weak, wasn't he also bullied by those wolves, tigers, and leopards? He had to undertake a dangerous journey and travel vast distances before he managed to take Patriarch Subhuti of the Fengsuan Mountain as his teacher, and thereby learning various magical techniques as he slowly trained to grow stronger. Hence, if Feng Lin wished to break through as quickly as possible, he had to find those extremely vile and intense environments, practicing his cultivation there. By using the power of nature to temper and refine his body, he would be able to increase his cultivation speed. He had already been to the third pole of the world, the Himalayas. Over there, icy mountains were everywhere, the cold wind was like sharp knives, and the air was extremely thin. That place was a forbidden land of death to ordinary humans. But to interstellar cultivators with powerful vitality, it wasn't anything much. That environment wasn't able to give Feng Lin any pressure. As for the most intense environment on Earth, the first thing he thought of was this Mariana Trench. Under the high pressure of millions and millions of tons of seawater, a human body would be easily crushed flat. This was really a good place to cultivate. The flying shuttle continued downward and reached the 5,000 meters depth. Feng Lin brought along a helmet-type water-breathing ventilator. He only wore a pair of shorts along with it and exited the flying shuttle. At the next moment, his face flushed red as he drew deep breaths using the ventilator. He could feel immense pressure as heavy as mountains crushing him from all directions, which was squeezing out the air from his chest. His entire person was about to be flattened. This heavy pressure from the external environment made it hard for him to breathe. He did his best to compact his body, reducing the surface area to alleviate the pressure. Feng Lin instinctively activated his stone monkey gene. Only then did things get more bearable. He relaxed his compact stance and lifted his fists. The powerful water resistance caused his movements to be severely impeded. Bang, bang, bang. He kept punching out in the water, causing immense vibrations and generating huge waves. Feng Lin's punches would be as fast as lightning if he was on land. But now, the speed of his punches felt like an old cow dragging along a heavy carriage. The speed was so slow that it was ridiculous. However, he wasn't shocked and was pleasantly surprised instead. He continued to attack, unleashing moves after moves, unleashing the entirety of energy within his body despite the fact that it felt like he was dragging along a heavy mountain. Genetic potential plus 18%, plus 18%, plus 18%. As expected, it was effective. Feng Lin silently mused that talent was truly important, and putting in hard work and effort was also imperative. This might be the innate essence of genetic potential. One had to cultivate very hard day after day, accumulating their gains and slowly transforming them into the foundation of their body before triggering a transformation. After a day of assiduous cultivation, Feng Lin's genetic potential increased by 270%. Without genetic potions reinforcing him, such a cultivation speed was extremely shocking. Under extreme environments, it could truly force out a human's greatest potential. Next, Feng Lin spent his days cultivating assiduously in such an environment. He gradually adapted to the immense pressure, and his movements grew smoother and more carefree. With every punch, giant circular ripples would be formed, blasting outward and generating huge waves that only dissipated after a long time. At the 5,000-meter mark, he had completely adapted to the pressure. It was time he went deeper. The depth of the Mariana Trench was hard to calculate in the ancient Earth era. However, in the interstellar era, the technology was sufficient enough to measure it. It was about 26,812 meters deep. A depth of 5,000 meters had barely scratched the surface. Feng Lin peered down. The amount of light gradually dimmed. Below him was pitch black and complete silence. It would surely cause fear in the hearts of the most stalwart. For those with a deep-sea phobia, they would definitely be scared out of their wits. Feng Lin shook his head. He calmed the unease in his heart and controlled the flying shuttle to go deeper. At the 8,000-meter mark, light no longer existed here. It was so dark that he couldn't see his 5 fingers even when he placed his hand before his eyes. The only source of light was from the flying shuttle, and it attracted several strange shapefish. Their eyes had completely degenerated and their bodies were transparent, allowing Feng Lin to see their organs completely. The moment Feng Lin left the shuttle, his back was bent like there was a 10,000-foot mountain on it. He couldn't straighten his back. Under this immense pressure, the energy in his body was slowly mobilized at full force. The moment he relaxed, his entire person would be squeezed by the pressure into meat paste. There were records of ancients training in the waters before, but the depth of the seas they had trained in were all very near to the surface. However, Feng Lin was too audacious. Even for the cultivators of his level, there was virtually no one who would choose such a depth to cultivate in. Earlier, Feng Lin had consumed many genetic potions, and the nutrients were accumulated in his body. Now, all of them were being put to good use, replenishing everything that his body had consumed in order to survive in this environment. His cultivation speed was about 3 to 4 times faster than normal. To Feng Lin, who was an interstellar cultivator, such cultivation speed was truly terrifying. The higher one's cultivation was, the more difficult it would be to advance forward. Feng Lin then continued cultivating at the 8,000-meter depth. When he was tired, he would return to the flying shuttle to take a break and move out again once he recovered. He severed all connection with the outside world. Nothing out there could affect him as he focused completely on his cultivation. His genetic potential naturally increased rapidly. Another 2 days passed and Feng Lin obtained another free primeval genetic point. He decisively added it to the spirit gene. His vitality stats naturally also increased. Name, Feng Lin. Vitality stat, 93.6. Primeval genes, Stone Monkey Gene X10, Spirit Gene X3. Basic genes, Monkey Gene X10, Stone Birth Gene X10, Adrenaline Gene X1, Mental Gene X9, Psychokinesis Gene X6, Spirituality Gene X8. Genetic potential, 18%. The strengthening tally of the spirit gene was enhanced to 3 points, and his vitality stats also broke past 93, reaching 93.6. However, Feng Lin wasn't satisfied yet. This speed was too slow. After 6 days, he merely managed to strengthen his spirit gene by 1 point. If this continued, when a month was up, Feng Lin would only be able to increase the strengthening tally of the spirit gene to 7 points. He would still be a distance away from breaking through to the elite cultivator realm. This was far from his expectations. At that time, if he participated in the second round of examination with this cultivation base, he would have no guarantees at all. If he wished to increase his cultivation speed, he had no choice left. He had to enter deeper into the sea and endure greater pressure. Feng Lin couldn't help but glance at the depths of the Mariana Trench beneath him that resembled a gigantic bottomless black hole. Chapter 190, Fearsome Silhouette. The environment at the bottom of the sea was completely different from the environment near the sea's surface. It wasn't strange that the life forms here would have developed differently in order to help them adapt, resulting in very strange appearances. Everything here appeared deathly still, but it wasn't safe at all. Even during ancient times, people of the ancient Earth era had detected many traces of legendary terrifying monsters. Feng Lin had to be careful. After adapting to the pressure at 8,000 meters, he continued downward and arrived at a depth of 10,000 meters. The moment he exited the flying shuttle, he could feel pain all over his body, like there was a gigantic mountain crushing him. He could even taste a faint sweetness at the back of his throat from his internal bleeding. Although the stone monkey gene could resist physical damage from external sources, this formless pressure under the sea could easily seep into his body. His soft organs and heart naturally found it tough to endure. Feng Lin's entire face was red. He held his breath and unleashed the full strength of the stone monkey gene. Only then could he barely endure this monstrous pressure. But even so, the pain he felt was still extremely intense. He also knew he couldn't relax in the slightest. At this depth, he felt that any carelessness on his part would result in him being crushed flat in an instant. Feng Lin hurriedly sat cross-legged and used his spirit force to remain floating in the water. His state of mind and heart had already entered a meditative state where there were no fluctuations. Before he did that, earlier, he had already switched off the lights of the flying shuttle as he didn't wish to attract those random strange aquatic life forms. His aura gradually became retracted as his breathing slowed. He was like an ancient turtle where a single breath could last him for 10,000 years. Although everything was calm externally, the energy in his body was raging. His qi and blood felt like lava coursing through his veins, circulating around his entire body. Feng Lin activated the transforming essence into qi technique as he did his best to digest the accumulated nutrients in his body. Under the heavy pressure, his muscle fibers broke apart and rapidly reformed. This cycle of destruction and rebirth continued again and again as his body grew tougher and more durable. If before this, his body could be likened to steel, now, it could be comparable to an alloy far stronger than steel. Both the interior and exterior of his body were toughened to the same degree. After becoming an interstellar cultivator, Feng Lin understood the concept of using strength like water. He could control the strength of all parts of his body completely. Under the crushing pressure of the deep sea, the entirety of his strength within his body seemed to come together as one. Now, once his strength erupted forth, he could unleash far greater might compared to before. Feng Lin's frame also grew more taut and sturdy, forming even more sinews covering his entire body. He could be likened to a stone that had undergone tens of thousands of refinements before becoming the current product. After adapting to the crushing pressure at the 10,000-meter depth, Feng Lin continued to unleash his punches, the Vajra subduing devil fist, the Kunlun grand palm imprint. He unleashed all sorts of martial techniques. Since his strength had come together and formed a point mass, it was able to instantly erupt forth with full power. The violent punch force opened up visible holes in the water, and the ripples continued to spread outward for an extremely far distance. Turning around and adjusting his stance, the water flow spiraling around him seemed to cover him in a water armor. Feng Lin increased the speed of his attacks. His entire person was like a hurricane, causing greater amounts of water to flow in circular motions around him. He now was like the center of a vortex. As his punch force blasted out, everything nearby was destroyed. Those strange sea creatures were instantly crushed into paste the moment they dared to approach. After some time, there were no more living creatures in the area around him. None of the sea creatures dared to get near. Genetic potential plus 32%, plus 32%, plus 32%. Even without the aid of genetic potions, under this immense pressure, Feng Lin's genetic potential also increased at a rapid rate. The only thing he lacked was time. Given Feng Lin's powerful body, he was able to endure for roughly an hour each time before he had to go back to the flying shuttle to rest. Feng Lin continued to cultivate assiduously, and 3 days later, he obtained another free genetic primeval point, strengthening his spirit gene to 4. His vitality stat climbed to 94.2, and his cultivation speed was faster compared to a few days ago. The deep sea was a forbidden place that ordinary humans wouldn't be able to come in contact with. It was filled with many unknown dangers. And as he subdued the fear in his heart, Feng Lin's spirit force also grew. It could be said that this training trip resulted in many benefits for him. Pooh. Today, when Feng Lin was cultivating, his spirit force sensed a deep-sea creature about 3 meters in length moving towards him as though it discovered a prey. He then instinctively slashed out a claw attack toward it. Vajra Dragon Claw. His claw was extremely sharp, tearing the sea creature to shreds. He opened his eyes to take a look only to see that the deep-sea creature was some sort of cuttlefish, and its body was now severed into 7 to 8 parts, falling down into the oceanic abyss below. Feng Lin didn't think too much about it and continued with his cultivation. However, he gradually sensed that something was amiss. All of a sudden, an unknown sense of crisis suddenly bore down his heart. His spirit force was warning him that he was in extreme danger. Feng Lin opened his eyes wide. His gaze gleamed like a torch as he surveyed the surroundings. However, all he could see was just darkness. He didn't discover anything. How could there be wind from an empty cave? There had to be a reason for the sense of danger. This sense of danger felt extremely odd. But it definitely couldn't be a coincidence. Feng Lin used the full strength of his spirit force to scan the surroundings. After the strengthening tally of the spirit gene reached 4, its scope had expanded to 4 kilometers. And as expected, he soon discovered that something was wrong a moment later. It was unknown when, but the living creatures in his surroundings had all vanished. The area around him seemed to have turned into a death zone. There was nothing alive here. Feng Lin instantly felt that something was wrong, and he rapidly swam toward his flying shuttle. Brrm. The nearby water around him vibrated. After that, a sharp piercing, howling sound could be heard, jarring his eardrums. A gigantic silhouette of about 100 meters in size, resembling an island, was hurtling through the water toward him. It was obviously a terrifying aquatic life form. What the hell? Feng Lin's immaterial spirit force transformed into material waves that blasted out. Normally, although monsters had huge sizes, their intelligence was limited. Their defense against spirit force would be extremely weak too. Using spirit force against them was the best method. It was able to crush their consciousness and make them fall into a helpless state where they would be lambs waiting for the slaughter. But this time around, Feng Lin felt that he had encountered an exception. His spirit force slammed into something akin to an iron wall. He could only feel boundless balefulness and savageness from it. There were no rational thoughts at all. Due to the backlash, Feng Lin felt a blinding headache. At the next moment, a gigantic and thick silhouette swung out from that monster, whipping toward him. His hands blocked before his chest, and in an instant, he felt like a huge mountain had just slammed into him. His entire person was like a cannonball, being flung through the water from the impact. Even his bones were on the verge of shattering. He felt pain everywhere. Just a single attack already injured him heavily? What monster was this? Feng Lin felt fear in his heart, but he didn't have any time to think. He endured the pain, but his entire body was trembling. He then spun like a spinning top, stabilizing himself as he shot like an arrow toward his flying shuttle. As long as he could return to his flying shuttle, he would be out of danger. Rumble. The seawater churned. Another gigantic black silhouette whipped over. An intent to kill appeared in Feng Lin's heart. His finger took on the form of a sword and pierced forth ferociously. A sharp light gleamed and a stream of power radiating invincible sharpness gushed forward with unstoppable momentum. Immortal slaying sword imprint. Chi. Feng Lin sliced that dark silhouette into 2, and a moment later, the fishy blood drenched his entire body, transforming him into a bloodman. He could clearly see something resembling the tentacles of a squid that was over 10 meters long. It seemed like a part of that terrifying gigantic silhouette's body, falling into the depths of the ocean. That fearsome silhouette howled in pain and agony. The sound waves were generating gigantic ripples which swept outwards. No time to lose. Feng Lin ignored the blood on his body and rapidly swam towards the flying shuttle, entering it through an emergency path. The flying shuttle shone its light over, and the appearance of the terrifying monster was revealed. This was a strange monster that had 8 tentacle-like appendages. It opened its mouth that resembled a giant black hole, revealing a row of razor-sharp fangs. The 8 appendages whirled about. At the tip of the 8 appendages, the head of a snake could actually be seen opening and closing their mouths. Feng Lin took in the shocking sight. He suddenly realized that this monster here had some resemblance to the world-destroying monster in Japanese mythology. Yamata no Orochi, a serpent with 8 heads and tails.